list be
I'm just
filed.
worried about how many are going to come in after the fact.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like it's a presidential election.
But it's kind of close to that.
Yeah.
It's on the line now.
Okay, Jennifer, we are live streaming.
Okay.
So we can
All right,
start.
we'll call. Thank you, ma'am. We'll call this meeting of the Genesee County Employees Retirement System to order at 1:01 p.m. on September 21st of 20. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Brandon,
Here.
Carpenter,
Here.
Quartz,
Here.
Seifert,
Here.
Hahn,
Here.
Mandalaris, do we know if Mr. Mandalaris is on the line?
I haven't seen him, but he did touch base with me today, so I thought he would be joining.
We hope pop in late. Russell, Simpson,
Here.
Young.
Here.
Okay.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Time set aside for public address. Any public address?
We did not have any.
No communication that, as far as that goes. Just as a housekeeping issue, other groups have done away with the roll call vote for every agenda item. And once we get into the item C3 and on, we may just switch over to a all opposed or any opposed or all in favor vote instead of the roll call vote, just for simplicity's sake. Jennifer, do you have any issues on the communication items?
I'd just like to discuss a couple of things with the board. With our Buck system, they did switch platforms. They did not give us much notice about that, and they didn't allow us to do any parallels. So Debbie and I have been working diligently trying to double check any figures that are going out of the office. We're finding a lot of mistakes. We also received a call from Macomb County that they were also having issues. Their board has held up payments to Buck until they get the problems resolved. So while we're not having the same issues they are, the main issue with Macomb County is their employee portal is not working at all. So they're getting a lot of heat from the employees. With us, most of our stuff we can correct before it goes out, but we are still trying to get them to do reports, mailings, things like that, that should have been done before the other platform went away, and it wasn't. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention in case we have any problems in the next month or so. I may have to bring it up again. And then also, I did want to let everyone know that we will have an upcoming election for active member. It looks like as of right now, we have petitions for Bill Brandon and Amy Golden for the upcoming election. And then just a reminder that we will have a 13th check going out, and that looks like it's around $545,000. So that's all I have.
Hey, Jennifer.
Yes.
Yep. Hey, Jennifer, I know I usually ask this, but can you give a breakdown of each employer's?
Yes, I will do that. Yep, we'll do that on the.
Check?
Yep, I'll do that at the November meeting. October,
Thank you very much.
I'll probably do November just because that'll be the complete total.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. No one has anything else. We'll move on to agenda A1, the approval of the minutes from August 17th.
Move them.
I'd like to make a motion to approve them.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Young. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
No opposition. That passes. We'll move on to approval of the minutes from September 10th.
Young, move them.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Carpenter support.
seconded by Carpenter. Any changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposition? So moved.
Can you dial in? Tell him to just dial in. Yeah,
Alright,
just
for-
ask him to dial in.
For the record, Mr. Mandelaris just sent word that he's not able to get a good internet connection and join us today, but he sends us his best wishes. Moving on, nothing in agenda item B in old business. We'll move on to C, new business. The asset manager summary presented by Ann Coe and Mr. Chris.
Thank you, Chairman. And good afternoon, everyone. In your packet, you should find, and I want to say it's like slide 10, the handout. Actually, I'm going to go to 11 first. And it's the one with the colorful boxes in the upper right-hand corner. If you move forward, yep, exactly. This is a recap of August in the capital markets. August was another good month for us. And you can see the S&P was up over 7%. Small caps, mid caps didn't do quite as good. You can see like 3.5 on the mid cap side and about 5.5 on the small cap. That's the Russell 2000. And I've pointed this out before, but it's even the gap between value stocks and growth stocks continue to widen. And so if you look at that Russell 1000 growth versus Russell 1000 value, August was another growth month. You can see that 1000 growth was up over 10%, where the value was up just over 4%. If you go out to the 12-month, the 1-year column coming down, growth stocks are up about 44%. Value stocks are not even at 1% over the same period of time. We're looking at like 43% difference between what you received from investing in large cap growth stocks versus large cap value stocks. And I will tell you, when we look at those numbers, and I want to say the year to date number for the S&P 500, you can see that it's up about 10%. If you look at the 5 largest stocks in that index, it's Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, and Google or Alphabet. Those stocks have went up about 60%. The rest of the stocks are up about 1%. Those names those 5 stocks I gave you represent over 25% of the index at this point. So when you think of the S&P 500, most people think of it as this very diversified, representation of the full equity market. It is becoming very, very concentrated in a handful of names at this point. And,
John Mandelaris is calling in.
Hi, John.
Hi.
This is Chris. I'm on page
Yes, Chris.
10, no, excuse me, it would be page 11 of the handout, and it has the colorful boxes in the upper right-hand corner.
Okay, thanks.
And it says market update August 31st, 2020.
Okay.
So we were just discussing kind of growth and value stocks and how the S&P is concentrated in 5 of the largest tech stocks. It represents about 25% of the index at this point. August was not as good for fixed income. I think this was the first month this year that it actually had a negative return. And you can see it was down almost 1%, 0.81% for the month for core fixed income, driven largely by corporate bonds selling off a little bit. So they've been kind of on a roll. And as I said, this month they took a little bit of a breather. But if you look at the year-to-date numbers, you're still around 7% for core fixed income, and a similar number over the last 12 months. So, any questions, kind of market related? If I don't hear any, I'll go back 1 page. So it would be slide 10, and this is that matrix that you are probably pretty familiar seeing. When we pulled these numbers as of September 10th, you can see the fund was about $452 million and relatively close to all our targets. I would say the one where we do have an overweight is WCM, and we'll be using that one here in the near future for some benefit payments, so that we'll continue to move towards our targets. The other one I wanted to kind of draw your attention to is down towards the bottom under the total real estate. You'll note we have about $61 million in real estate. Our target's actually closer to 80. And so we do have, I would say a significant underweight in real estate. And to that end, we met the investment committee, and I met a couple of weeks ago and looked at some candidates in that real estate space, particularly in the value add space. So when I say value add, what we're referring to is kind of the fixer upper. So these are managers who, and you already have some of them in your portfolio, Alliday, JCR, perfect examples. And these are the managers who buy a building that needs a little bit of work, put some dollars into putting in a new parking lot, maybe updating the landscaping, updating the lobby area and maybe the elevators, and then, helping build out tenant, if it's an office, business space, or if it's in an apartment, maybe they're updating some of the fixtures within the apartment. And then they, try to sell the building after they've kind of put a little bit of money into it for a much higher price than they originally paid for it. Those were the kind of managers we're looking at. And part of the rationale is that while real estate has done very well, definitely is probably, going forward, given current valuations and I would say some challenges in the real estate market, our expectations are probably 5 to 8% from core real estate. The value add, we think we probably can still get double digits. And so I have included a search book in the packet. I'm not planning on going over it page by page. When we met at the investment committee, we discussed the candidates in detail, and they thought it would be a good idea just to kind of provide a quick summary of the candidates that we looked at and solicit a little bit of feedback from other trustees during the full board meeting. So in the book, and I think maybe I would jump to slide 20, and it would, if you're looking at the actual search book, it would have the small 8 at the bottom. And this page kind of gives a quick overview of the different strategies that we're looking at. AEW, I would tell you, is probably it was by far the largest of the managers that we looked at by assets, in the $60–70 billion in real estate assets. And this is, I want to say, fund 10 or 9 for them. And it really does what I would say is your traditional kind of fixer-upper strategy, looking at, I would say, the 4 kind of main asset groups within real estate. When I say that, we're talking about apartments or multifamily, industrial, retail, and office. I think that's all 4 of them. So they, as I said, do that strategy that I just laid out, where they, put some money into a building and sell it for a higher price. Really looking at, I would say, kind of the gateway markets. And when we say gateway markets, this is sometimes referred to as like the 24-hour type cities. So think New York, LA, San Francisco, Boston, DC. Those kind of what I would say are the major real estate markets for institutional investors. And they've been doing this for many years, and they're going to continue to do that strategy. Harvard, similar, their focus very much like AEW's. They're going to be a little bit more focused on apartments and office. Those are the areas where they bulk of their investments in, and they'll also be focused more on the south and west areas of the United States, as opposed to kind of the Northeast, where we typically find some of the other managers like the AEWs. Stockbridge, And you can see by the name here, it says core and value in the firm name. This is actually probably going to be the most conservative of the group. And when I say that, very light renovation. So they're not looking at the building that needs, a kind of a complete overhaul, more of just the cosmetic parts. And you can note that they're going to have a little bit lower of a target return associated with this. They also are going to do probably the least amount of development of all the managers. So as I said, it's much more of, I would say, kind of a value add light strategy relative to the AEW, the Harbert, the TerraCap, and the Virtus strategies. TerraCap, I would tell you, kind of falls back into the more traditional value add. I would tell you their focus has historically been south, like southeast. They're based in Florida. That's really kind of the market that they kind of grew out of. And now if you were to draw kind of a line from Charlotte to Denver and down, that's kind of their area of interest, driven largely by demographic moves. So where people are going, where we're seeing kind of population growth, that's kind of where their focus is. They've historically done quite a bit of office as well. They're trying to actually veer a little bit more into multifamily and some of the other areas, kind of given some of the challenges in office at this point. And then the last one is Virtus. This one, I would tell you, kind of falls outside of the traditional value add space, looking really at kind of the specialty types of properties. So if you look here, you'll see workforce apartments, self-storage, student housing, charter schools. As I said, kind of playing in a little different area of the real estate market. And the consensus at the investment committee meeting was that that was probably the one that we have the least amount of interest, just given its different focus. So I'm happy to answer any questions. As I said, kind of open it up to the other members for thoughts and questions at this point.
Chris,
Hey,
if I
Chris,
remember,
this is Joe.
Yes?
Go ahead.
Chris, if I remember correctly, we were to the point where we were going to discuss who we wanted to bring in and possibly meet with.
Yes.
Okay.
I just know Halliday had another one. Are we looking at Halliday just because we already have experience with them, or?
So they're not technically out yet.
Oh, okay.
They're very close, but at this point, they don't have any offering documents for us to view. I think the idea
Okay.
we'll probably circle back around with them once they actually have finalized their materials.
Okay.
Does anyone have any thoughts or input from the board as far as which firms you'd like to meet with?
I'd like to see. At least. Chris, you probably deal with them a lot more than we do, so I'd probably at least want to see your 1, 2, maybe 3 options versus. Just giving me a list of the things and saying, here, go pick your best one. I guess this is your expertise a little bit more than ours.
I will tell you, I think, AEW, Harbert, and TerraCap are probably 1, 2, 3, not necessarily in that order for your plan.
Okay.
And this is just my experience. TerraCap, I will tell you, probably puts the money to work the fastest and then gets it back to you the fastest. AEW and Harbert, I think, typically take a little bit longer. Yeah, maybe it's just kind of the buildings that they buy, but as I said, it's not uncommon for TerraCap to literally hold a building, 2 years or something like that before they have it on the market and are selling it. I would say typically with AEW and Harbert, that's probably 3 to 4 years. It's maybe twice as long. Returns are historically pretty close between them. So, and we do it, there, as I said, we have all of that information in the book. So if you go
Yeah, I was looking at most of it.
towards the back, we have the performance. And I think it comes down to how many do we want to interview. Given kind of the size that we have, I mentioned, there's about $18 million that's kind of uncommitted at this point. I think we're not trying to put all of it to work. I think our idea was that we tried to probably put somewhere in the $8 to $12 million commitment range this year, and probably a similar amount next year. Knowing that not all of that money gets put to work right away. So if we selected one of these managers today and said, here's a $10 million commitment, it probably takes 2 to 3 years for that to actually get invested. By which time we've probably seen some money come back from the earlier JCR and Alidate funds that we have already in the portfolio. So we're going to continually have to make new allocations to these managers, because once you start getting the money to work, they start sending it back as they sell the properties.
Okay, Chris, this is the other Jeff. Stockbridge, on the paper there, has a red flag. It says that they invest in retail properties. I'm really concerned with the existence today and future of retail properties, what with the younger generations advent of moving to computers to buy things. So let me ask you, did they emphasize that they're getting out of retail properties, or are they still dabbling in that area?
I will tell you, almost all of the managers are still going to look at retail. I will, they have obviously become a lot more cautious in that space, given kind of what's going on. And even before kind of the pandemic hit, retail had its issues, and you could see that as you would walk through malls. There's more kind of vacancies, and I think it's well documented. Sears, Kmart, JCPenney's is going through some issues. I want to say Neiman Marcus had to file for bankruptcy protection. So everyone's kind of aware of kind of the challenges in the retail space. The one area where I think you continue to see retail kind of make sense is the grocery anchored kind of strip centers, where you have the Kroger or a Whole Foods or something like that, where you do kind of continue to see people pulling into the parking lots. And then next door, there might be the salon or the gym or things like that that are really hard to kind of replicate online. Obviously, COVID has kind of shut down some of those pieces for the time being, but slowly but surely they're kind of coming back online. And I think we'll continue to see people in demand for those. They obviously are very cautious. So when investing in any retail type properties.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Would it be possible maybe to look at the different real estate managers that we have at this point in time, have them come in, kind of give us their overview of what they're anticipating the markets to do? And again, I guess I would look at that as just kind of like a little bit of a due diligence on our existing investments, and plus maybe would give us a little bit more information for potential guidance as we go forward too, because with the COVID process going on, and we have no idea how long that's going to last, unless you think it's going to be over by election day. I look at what Jeff brought up as a major concern to me, the retail properties with Stockbridge. I'm also have concerns with Virtus based on some of their investment areas, such as student housing and charter schools. This retirement system has been kind of, I would say, built on the back of union retirees. So I would hate to look at go into something, you know, that could have a potential perception of anti-union or non-union issues such as the charter schools. I would just desire to stay clear of that altogether, as I pointed that out at the investment committee meeting. But I'm not real comfortable, since we don't have to do this immediately. I would rather have, you know, a little bit of time, allow a little bit of time to pass in that process for us to better educate ourselves on these type of investments, whether or not it makes sense to continue, you know, down this road versus just going ahead and trying to hurry up and do an investment. And I'm not saying that's what we're doing. I just don't want to get into that kind of a situation where we end up doing it a little bit too quickly, because as Chris pointed out on some of these malls, that how bad some of them are doing. And I mean, we can see that in our own backyard here at a couple malls. I don't really see, as long as the COVID process is on, I don't see that growing. I don't see it being what I would consider a stable environment. So, you know, and I sit on the Genesee operations board for the Chamber of Commerce. I also sit on the Grand Blanc Chamber of Commerce board, and I just do not hear from business owners that things are real stable for them. So for us to get into any type of retail investments, you know, in that, it just really, you know, it to me, it's a scary idea at this point. I definitely would want a lot more information going forward. Thank you.
Great point. I was going to mention, and I think, you know, thanks for kind of reminding me. We discussed that at the investment committee as well, about having, you know, your current managers coming in and providing kind of an update on the real estate space. So I had kind of earmarked that for the next meeting in October. We'll invite, I was planning on one manager. If we want, we could invite more to participate in the monthly meeting. Just ask for, you know, a 15-minute kind of overview of the market, and then let them have, you know, 5 minutes to give us kind of a performance update. So,
Chris, this is Bill. If I see some of these funds are going to close out December of 20, should we look to bring in two of the potential firms also as well to speak with after we know who we're already in business with?
It's completely up to you. I don't want to feel like you're rushed. So if we're not ready to make a decision and the fund's closed, there's always another one coming around the corner. So I don't believe like we're missing out on the greatest strategy in the world, right? Quite honestly, I don't believe there is one. But I'm just saying, like, if there was one manager that I'd be like, you know what, this is one that I don't want you to miss on, you know, let's bring them in, I would say something. As I said, they're all really good managers. There are going to be good managers in January of next year. There are going to be good managers in July next year. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we're not in a hurry to necessarily get into one of these just because it's closing down. If we miss, we miss, and we'll find another for you.
All right, so there's no timeline, deadline as far as this uncommitted capital just sitting there not being put to work.
Well, and just so everyone's clear, it's not sitting, not doing anything. It's currently in equities and fixed income, return. It's just not in real estate. So I don't want to think we have $18 million sitting in cash, just kind of waiting. That's not the case.
What's the, yes, sir, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I just would like to reach out to one of our other board members, maybe Jeff Seifert, and I know he's very familiar with these type of investments. You know, get some, you know, wisdom from Jeff in this process. What do you think about it, Jeff?
No, I think your idea was a good one, Mark. I would probably bring in 2 of our current real estate investment firms. One of them would be Aledade, and maybe even bring in Bloomfield. Even though we put them in the bond or fixed category, they're still in real estate, short-term bridge loans. But at least have them on a panel, maybe, as Chris said, let them talk together, maybe for 15, 20 minutes, and then let us ask some questions. And I like the idea of the fact that this money is already invested someplace. I'm looking at the prior sheet, and it looks like we're definitely overboard in international growth, about 14,000, and we have the S&P low volatility, we're over about 5,000. I think that's where Chris is going to be removing money from to move it into this real estate area. So again, Mark, I think it's a good idea. I'd like to see 2, though, come in and do a panel discussion.
Yeah, I'd
on
agree.
real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I had kind of penned down the PRISA team, the Prudential guys, and
okay.
Aledade would be the 2 that I would kind of suggest. One gives you kind of, Aledade's much kind of secondary markets for the most part, a little bit nichier type of real estate. They do a lot of that industrial flex and things like that. And then the Prudential folks are going to give you kind of the national view of the markets, kind of what's going on in those gateways, and they'll have kind of a better idea of what's going on in kind of the retail space, because that's an area that they do invest in. So as I said, those would be the 2 I would kind of earmark to come in and do, as I said, a discussion on the space.
Can we bring in all 3? Because I would like to hear from Bloomfield also.
Sure.
I know that, if we can limit them to a certain amount of time, that type of thing.
We can do that.
All right. Chris, if you could set those for October or November if need be.
I'm sure we can do October. At this point, I don't think anyone's really traveling, so they'll just participate just like we're doing today.
Okay.
And then that would conclude my presentation for today.
Motion to accept Chris's presentation.
Support.
John Mandelaris.
Got a motion supported. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Chris. That's C1 and C2. We'll move on to C3, scheduled deceased retirees.
Bill, are we supposed to be taking your roll call votes or not?
No, John, we're gonna just move on to we're gonna move away from the
Okay.
roll call just for efficiency's sake and just do all in
Okay.
favor.
All right. Okay.
Accept deceased retirees.
Support.
Deceased retirees.
Support.
Could the people that are making, I'm on the phone here, could they identify themselves prior to speaking?
Yes,
That
I
was a
believe,
motion by Kim Court.
Kim
Court, okay, got it.
Supported by Seifert.
Supported
Okay.
by Seifert. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. C4, the reemployed retirees.
Question for Jennifer. Is there anyone on that list that we need to be concerned with?
No, Mr. Wright is staying at his 990. He's the highest. They all look to be in compliance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like
Motion.
folks to accept the report.
Thank you, Jeff. Carpenter,
Support Seifert.
support Seifert. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So moved. C5 new retirees through September 14th. Entertain a motion to accept.
Seifert, move.
Carpenter
Seconded.
support.
Seifert and Carpenter support. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. We'll move on to C6. This is a much quicker way of doing business. Schedule of refunds through September 16th.
Motion to
I'd like to make
approve,
a
Seifert.
Support Carpenter.
Seifert and supported by Carpenter. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion's carried. Moving on, C7, schedule of billings and expenses. Entertain a
Carpenter'd
motion.
like to make a motion to support, or motion
Support,
to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. I believe Ms. Quartz was in there with support.
Yes.
Any discussion? Are we going, I have one question. We are going to continue with July's payment, just not moving forward to Buck?
Actually, I'm holding, right now I have September's payment that I was gonna pay on Friday if they get 2 reports done that I need done this week. And then we'll go from there and discuss if we're having issues next month.
Okay. All right. That being said, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Motion carried. And legal report by Mr. Judd.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks, everybody. You've got 2 reports in front of you in your agenda packet. The first one is from Labaton Sushiro. David Goldsmith usually attends your Zoom meetings from New York, but he did state that he has an oral argument tomorrow and he wanted to focus all his energy on that, which I completely understand. So I will just quickly note that there are no new cases for you guys to consider today. But an update on the Is the Fix case, our motion is due October 1st. October 1st, sorry. So I'm sure he'll be filing that and then sending copies to both me and Jennifer so that we have them for our records in that case. And then your next report from Robbins Geller also states that there are no new cases to be filed there either. So no action to be taken on these except receive and file. I do have one quick update on an item we talked about at the last meeting. If the board recalls, we had a brief discussion about the WorkShare unemployment program that the state of Michigan is providing, where someone might get an extra $600 per week in their unemployment benefits provided by the state, paid for by the state. The question arose, well, what happens when someone goes to retire? You know, is that compensation? What happens if someone wants to purchase their service credit for their time off, for their sick leave when they come back to work? Is that included? I've reviewed the ordinance. I've discussed this with Jennifer. We're both comfortable saying that the additional $600 per week through this WorkShare program is not compensation and should not be included in final average comp or in when someone attempts to purchase their sick time back. The primary reason for that is the ordinance defines compensation as, you know, amounts paid for services rendered for your employment to the county or the other employer groups and so on. These funds are not provided by the county. They're clearly provided by the state as this sort of supplemental unemployment benefit as we move through the pandemic here. I don't think there was any intent for that to be recognized at a local level. So my opinion, and I think it's clear that it should not be included. I didn't put anything, I have emails back and forth with Jennifer. If anybody wants something more formal, I'd be more than happy to provide it. But I just thought I would circle back at the meeting because I know we discussed it. That everybody's clear that won't be included in someone's comp.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
thank you, Frank.
No problem.
Yeah, Frank,
Yes.
Is that gonna all be included in the minutes verbatim?
I
Your
will.
opinion now?
I know that Deanna does a really nice job of including most of that verbatim. I certainly review those draft minutes and maybe clean up my ums and uhs and so on, so it looks a little bit more more educated
A little
than
more
maybe the way I
professional,
spoke.
right?
Yeah, a little more professional.
Okay.
Appreciate it. But yes, the conclusion and the broad overview of the issue will
Yeah.
definitely be in the minutes.
Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Judd. Anyone else have any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept legal report.
Seifert, so
I'll make the
moved.
motion.
Mr. Mandelaris, seconded by Mr. Seifert. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None, motion passes. Moving on, informational items D, we have nothing. Unless
Bill?
the board has anything to add?
Yeah, Bill, this is Jeff. Two things. One, for the Fall Mapers Conference back in June or somewhere in that area, when they announced they were going to have a fall conference, I sent in I contacted Mapers, used a credit card to charge the registration of Mapers. That's $300 for attendance. After they canceled the conference, they sent out at least I got an email, I don't know if anybody else did, saying that they were going to push that $300 registration into the future for future Mapers conferences for those respective individuals. I called Michelle at Mapers and explained, look, because of my age and the fact that if we ever do travel again, if it's allowed, my wife and I travel a lot, and we may not be able to attend the Mapers. So I wanted to get my $300 credited back to my credit card. Michelle sent an email later saying that she understood she would attempt to have the credit placed back on my credit card. Well, it's September and it's still not there. So I'm not asking for any action. I'm just bringing this to the attention of the board that I'm still trying to get my $300 back. I don't know if Jennifer or maybe Tracy, if they got their monies back or if they're going to move it forward. I guess I need some help on this.
Jeff, would you want to submit an expense report? We could reimburse you, and then if you decide not to attend, we could put that toward another trustees in the future.
If that's acceptable to the board, that's fine with me. I don't care who uses the $300. It's the chance that I may not be able to use it. And that was my problem.
Right. Yeah, so I wasn't aware of this. So can you give me till next month to see if I can reach out and see what the status is on that? And then we can go forward in October?
That'd be fine with me. Again, I just want to bring this up to the attention of the board.
Sure.
All right, what was your second item, sir?
I'll reach out through, oh, sorry, Jeff, if I may, I'll reach out through my office as well to Michelle and with Tom Michaud, because we serve as their legal counsel, right? So I'll try to get some more information for you.
Sure. 95% of the attendees are employed trustees. Unfortunately, I'm not. And there's no guarantee that I'd be able to attend the next conference. So.
Right.
Okay, the second item, we traditionally have had in the past a fall newsletter that does a number of things besides informing the retirees of last year's new retirees, last year's retiree deaths. It also goes into items such as the 13th check, if it's coming or not, so they can expect it. Plan around it. We also, I do a major section on the status of the retirement fund, funding levels, who retired from where everybody's coming from as far as retirement goes. It's quite an extensive report. So my question is, since I was voted out of having a spring newsletter, are we going to have a fall newsletter?
As far as we know, nothing's changed as far as the fall newsletter goes.
Okay, well, I didn't want to start writing something and then find out it was all for naught.
No, I don't think there was any issues with the fall letter at all.
Can I just ask one question of the board and their opinion on the 13th check language in the fall newsletter? My only concern with that is the number of phone calls we get from people who don't read it correctly and they think they're planning around a 13th check and they don't get one because of when they retired. So there was and I don't know, Tracy, you might have input on that because you served in that office as well. Well, Jeff, you did too, but when that goes into the newsletter, people don't read it and then they call in December and want to know where their extra check is.
I'd be willing to, Jennifer, if you want to write that section, please put it in whatever phraseology you would like to help you.
Yeah, my thought on that is we send out a memo to all of the retirees that are getting a 13th check out of the retirement office. I would almost like to just not include it in the newsletter because the newsletter goes out to, 3 or 4 times more people than actually get the check. And then you get people that are upset and want to know why and they want to fight it. And, there's just a lot of bad feelings when they see that other people are getting it and they're not. So we do send out a letter from the retirement office so they can change deductions if they want. Just my opinion, I'd prefer to keep it out of the fall newsletter just because of the confusion.
Sure, I can leave it out.
Perfect, thank you.
And
Right.
typically, Jennifer, the number of years that it's been going on, I think people are pretty used to knowing who's eligible, who's not, but you still have the same people year after year and issue after issue that will argue I should be getting it.
Exactly, yeah. And like I said, we do send the memo out to the ones that are receiving it to give them a heads up in case they want to change their taxes and they're expecting that check.
All right, if no one has anything else informationally, we'll move on. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
I'll make the
moved.
motion to adjourn. John Mandelaris.
Support.
Support, and all in favor?
Aye.
All right, everyone have a fantastic month and stay healthy.
Thank
See
you.
next month,
We'll
hopefully.
be adjourned at
All right.
1:49 p.m.
Be safe, everyone.
Okay.
Yep. Bye.
Minutes. Bye-bye. Bye.